Hey guys, Dusty here. Today I want to talk to you about my experience with the dreaded plantar fasciitis. So I've been lucky enough through most of my running journey to have really no serious injuries until now. And please keep in mind, I am not a medical professional. I'm just sharing with you my experience with plantar fasciitis. Now, I've been dealing with this garbage for about 4 months, and it's only been in the last few weeks that I've really started to see quite a bit of relief. And the first symptoms of my plantar fasciitis started 4 months ago during and especially after a half marathon race. It was after that race that I started experiencing pain on the bottom of my foot. And instead of taking a recovery mindset to it, I just pushed through, didn't think it was a big deal. And because of that, over the next few months, I really paid the price. And if you're watching this, you probably have plantar fasciitis and are very aware of what it is. Essentially, it's inflammation on the bottom of the foot. It can usually be a lot worse or more painful first thing in the morning. And for me and my plantar fasciitis, the pain is most specifically in my heel. And we think the cause of my plantar fasciitis comes from some biomechanical issues, as well as an increase in my training load, both in terms of volume and intensity. So to go back to the beginning, I think it was only like 7 to 10 days after that half marathon. I was still pushing things in the training department very hard, and the pain at the start of the runs had gotten so bad that I would have to stop after the first few minutes, take my shoe off, and actually walk around with my sock on the pavement, just to loosen up my heel enough so that I could put my shoe back on and continue the run. I was obviously using very poor judgment, as it was about 5 or 6 weeks after that I had done a little park run, a little local 5K, and I remember my heel was very sore during the warm-up, and I took off my shoe, dug my thumbs into my heel, tried to loosen it up as much as I could, and I didn't even go as hard as I could during the 5K. I probably went like 85-90%, and it was like 30 minutes after that race, my foot felt like it was completely shattered, just totally broken. I had a really hard time walking around for a few days after that. In fact, I have a job where I normally have to walk like 20 to 30,000 steps in a day, and some of the days I just had to go home early because the pain in my heel was so intense. And of course, like normal plantar fasciitis symptoms, it was always most intense first thing in the morning. But anyway, since that 5K race and experiencing unbelievable heel pain, I decided I had to shelf my running and my fitness and really focus on my recovery so that I could run pain-free again and not lose my mind. So first of all, in my recovery process, I had to figure out why I was getting plantar fasciitis. I know a lot of people just say, oh, use these insoles, or I switched to this shoe. First of all, I switch shoes basically every run. As you know me, I have tons of shoes, but I really felt that I needed to figure out why I was getting plantar fasciitis. Instead of just throwing some band-aid solution on it, I wanted to get down to the root cause because I don't want it to come back. So like I mentioned earlier, we think some of the cause of this comes from biomechanical issues, and it makes a lot of sense to me. The leg that I have plantar fasciitis on, I've had some minor things going on basically over the whole past year. So first of all, my range of motion, especially in my hamstring, is hugely limited compared to my other leg. And my hamstring tightness was really originating at the very top, basically right where it attaches to the glute. And because of that, it was throwing my gait off, or my foot strike, on that side of my body. And as a result, for a long time, even before my plantar fasciitis, I would always have extreme hamstring tightness on that side. And it was even starting to cause some issues in my calf, more specifically my soleus. And then ultimately, all that pounding with an improper foot strike led to my plantar fasciitis. So step one in my recovery process was getting the range of motion back in that hamstring. And what that looked like for me is one day I would do really deep foam rolling or massage. My wife used to be a massage therapist, so it was handy having her around to beat me up every other night. And then on the days in between that, I would do lots of stretching, more specifically PNF stretching. And that's where you're alternating between contracting a muscle and then relaxing it. And it was a combo of those two things that it did take quite a while. It took a couple of weeks of doing that every other day. Through being consistent with that, I did get a lot of range of motion back in that hamstring, and I was able to foot strike properly and match, for the most part, how I was doing it on the other side. And then as far as my foot or heel pain itself, early on I would take some lotion and dig into my heel with my thumbs, which is okay. You could decide how much pressure you want it to apply. Started using a golf ball. I have a trigger point ball, but you know what? I found these things to be maybe a bit too intense, and I think I was actually causing more inflammation than doing good. And actually something that I like stepping on a few times a day now is a tennis ball. This is hard enough to dig in slightly, but still soft enough to not make my heel angry or get too inflamed, unlike when I was using a trigger point ball. And I will mention, I did love doing this toe stretch on the same days that I would do my hamstring stretching. Another great tip for first thing in the morning is before I would actually get out of bed. Oftentimes I would hate getting out of bed in the morning because I knew that walk to the bathroom was going to be unbelievably painful. So a tip someone told me was, first thing when you wake up and before you get out of bed, slowly move your foot back, do some circles, get some blood flow to that area. And I gotta say that did provide quite a bit of relief first thing in the morning. Now in terms of my training specifically, this is probably my biggest takeaways from this whole thing. I've talked to many people that have had plantar fasciitis, and I would say most people say their experience with severe plantar fasciitis lasted anywhere from like 6 months to over 2 years. So the fact that I'm seeing some relief at 4 months, I'm very grateful for that. Something that you need to commit to if you are going through the recovery process with plantar fasciitis is that you really need to reduce your overall training load, both in terms of volume and intensity. And what that means is you absolutely are going to lose some of your running fitness, and you're going to have to commit to this in order to become better. So I had a brutal fall of fitness building because I was focused on healing my foot. And what that looked like in terms of training was basically no workouts on deck for me, no track, no hard running. The intensity really would blow my foot up. And I committed to, I think 4 or 5 weeks of this, but I wouldn't run more than 2 days in a row, and I would never go past 90 minutes for my long run. And I'm not quite out of the woods yet. I still have mild discomfort, but it certainly is going away. And just this past week, I had my biggest training week in, I believe it's been over 3 months, and I did quite a bit of faster running too. So needless to say, I'm unbelievably happy that this is in the rear view, and I just wanted to share my experience with you. I've had so many people complain to me about plantar fasciitis, and I've never really been able to share that pain with them because I've never experienced it. And I just want to say, if you're going through it like me, be smart about your training, really back things off. If you're a type A athlete, like so many of us, set your ego aside and focus on your recovery, knowing that you're going to lose a little bit of fitness, but ultimately it's going to help you in the long run. And I think that's going to be it. There are so many solutions out there for healing plantar fasciitis, so you got to find out what works for you. I'm just sharing what's worked for me. And if you've had plantar fasciitis, share down below in the comments what your solution was. And if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And like always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.